you give a brief overview of what life is like at NCSSM, both in the residential aspect and the online aspect?
Okay, so for the residential aspect, I feel it feels like a big community. Everyone that's there to help you. There's a lot of clubs that interest you not only in STEM but also in humanities and arts and other stuff. But the classes offered are really cool. The dorms are really nice for at least for me. I don't know about Noel. Overall, I really love it there. It feels like a big family, and I met some really cool people there.
Yeah, for online, obviously it's a lot different compared to residential because you're still going to your base school full time. But I would say that the way online looks is entirely dependent on what class or classes you're taking. I know for me personally, I'm taking like the computational science sort of classes, so it involves a lot of coding and sitting in front of a computer and um, working stuff out that way. And I know a lot of other classes are different. So even if you want to talk about what your time looks like for online.
Sure. So this last semester I took a genetics class, and it's actually really cool. I just want to emphasize to anyone who's looking between if you want to apply to online or residential, the social aspect is still there in online. You still get to meet with all your friends in classes. You get to talk with them all the time. So if you're worried, oh, I won't be able to talk with people, it's going to be awkward and online, it's not at all like that. So I would say the social life aspect and even the student life in general in the online program is still really, really good, just like in residential.
Change by next year, but for now, what's your biggest takeaway from the whole NCSSM experience?
For me, it'd be the relationships and learning how to live independently.
For me, being an online student, I think it's more oriented towards the skills and knowledge that I'm gaining in my classes because they are very intensive, but they teach you a lot of things. So I'm learning a bunch of new coding languages that I had no experience in prior. So that's probably my biggest takeaway.
For me, it would also be like Priya, the student atmosphere, because everyone's so motivated and pushing you to do better, and everyone's so sweet. We spend a lot of time together when you all live together. So
Yeah, and I think like with Priya and what Noah said, just the connections and being able to connect with all the other students and the teachers, it's just a really, really nice environment that I've enjoyed.
The pressure students face due to the competition at the school, if I'm reading it correctly. So you guys can talk about that.
Yeah, I feel like so there's two ways that we can address this question. I feel like one, competitions that you are partaking in before you apply, and then like competition within the school itself. So I don't really think that we can, at least personally, from NCSSM online perspective, the competition at the school itself doesn't really play. It didn't really play that big of a factor for me personally on doing my work. I guess it helped that I wasn't in that like super competitive environment like the residential students are in when they're surrounded by their peers. But also, I don't think we can make a overarching general statement for everybody, for every student, because the pressure that you feel from apparent competition will definitely be different for every student. So that's what I'll say.
yeah, everybody deals with competition once you're in the school differently. But from my perspective, from the residential program, my atmosphere with the workload I had, even though it was heavier than my base school, it was much more positive at science and math. Lots of people, they emphasize time management again and again and again. And most kids do pretty well with that. there are tons of opportunities for students there as well. So don't think you're going to get in and then not have access to any of these research opportunities because they're all too exclusive. That's totally not true. If you get in, you're going to have access to plenty of things regardless of the competition. And people are very friendly about it too. It's not a cutthroat atmosphere at all at the school.
And someone's asking right now, can someone talk a little about how dual enrollment works with NCSSM online? So Sridhar or Shashank, if you would like to cover that.
So I haven't dual enrolled yet. I'm still taking the 4 classes at my school and then the 1 class outside of school. And I don't think Sashank has dual enrolled either, so I don't think either of us are very familiar, but I would guess it's probably just a similar process where you ask your counselor at your home school about dual enrollment, and then you can kind of figure that out with the NCSSM, and then kind of coordinate which class you want to take during your dual enrollment and what period you want to miss at your home school. It should be a pretty standard process from what I'm guessing though.
Yeah, and there's also, I think there's the option to miss a period in your homeschool for online specifically, and there's also the option to still take your full course load in your homeschool, take your extra SSM online class or classes, and just have it count for your overall GPA in your homeschool, which is another version of dual enrollment. And it really just depends on the school. So that's how it was. Both me and Sridhar go there. So he said, talk with your counselors about how your school or how your district does dual enrollment.
There's a question in the chat about comparing homework. From the classes I've taken, it's pretty similar. Obviously will change with the class. I'm sure the residential students can speak to how the residential program compares to the normal program at their home schools, but even in online, it'll differ based on what class you take. And so if Sashank wants to talk to that, he can too.
Yeah, so really the classes that I'm taking, I just finished taking the intro computational science class, and the homework that my teacher assigned us was these 2 labs that we would have the entire week to do. And oh yeah, let's go through a little bit of background on how the online program works specifically, because in terms of meetings and stuff, you have 1 meeting with your class every week via Zoom, obviously, where it's an hour-long meeting that's predetermined on what day and stuff it will be. And there your teacher will engage in a live discussion with students and teach a lesson, and then assign homework to be completed by the end of the week. And yeah, my teacher assigned 2 or 3 labs for us to do every week. And in terms of timing, I usually did most of that work on the weekends, because obviously the weekdays were filled with work from my base school. And really, depending on the rigor of the lab, it took maybe between 2 or 4 hours a weekend to complete my online homework. But again, this entirely varies based off of the class that you guys are in.
Yeah, for residential, it also depends on your classes. Most of my classes are challenging. We have 4,000 courses, which are college level courses, and those tend to have even more work. I'd say definitely first coming into the residential program, I noticed a difference more in the difficulty of the work than the quantity of the work. Really make me think. So I'm taking longer on them in order to get the same grade I would have at my home high school. That being said, you still do have a heavy workload. Again and again and again, people talk about time management. So you spend lots of time working, and everybody at the school does. But it's not unmanageable.
Yeah, like Noel said, it's not unmanageable. Time management is a big part. And the teachers are really flexible. They'll give extensions when you need it. If you just shoot them an email, they'll be like, "Oh, it's okay." They're so sweet. But it does vary on what courses you take. Like for me, I have the same amount of workload, but it's based on your teacher too. And like Noel said, a lot of her classes and my classes made me think longer, and I didn't have that many assignments, but I just had to think more critically.
And we got one question about, is there any requirements on the number of region, or Shank wants to answer that really quickly.
Yeah, there's no requirement for the STEM classes for online. Online also offers a lot of humanity classes and stuff to take when compared to residential courses, but it does have courses in every field that you'd want to take it in, and there's no requirement on science, STEM courses versus humanities or anything like that.
And then for a residential, is there a requirement in the number of STEM classes at the residential program? Is it different than online?
So within your STEM classes, you have to take a certain amount of chemistry. I think it's 2 chemistry, 1 core chemistry and 1 elective chemistry, 1 core physics, 1 elective physics. I think it's 3 bio.
I think it's just 1 bio. You just have to take a single core bio.
Yeah, and then there's 2 maths, I think, right?
It's 4 maths overall because they want you to take one every semester, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to take an engineering or a comp-sci course as well.
And then for humanities, you take American Studies, obviously, for junior year. And then during senior year, you could either take 2 different courses of humanities, or you could take one that ties in history and English. So like it would be like African Studies or Asian Studies.
There's a question in the chat about the medical field. So yes, I would recommend it. I mean, medicine is obviously a STEM field, so that's kind of what NCSSM, it definitely excels in pretty much all STEM fields. So if you're interested in the medical field, SSM would definitely be a good outlet for you. Obviously, you'd have to consider the other aspects of, you know, residential, do you want to live away and things like that. But from a pure academic standpoint, yes, it's very good.
And then someone asked about how many classes we're taking per semester. So this first year, I'm taking 1 class online for each semester. I believe Sashank's taking 2 classes next semester. He can tell you that. But every semester is between 1 to 2 classes, except for your first semester, where you're required to only take 1 class. So you can basically determine how many ever you want between 1 and 2 classes. Obviously, you can take.
Right. Yeah, I'm also only taking 1 class this second semester as well, even though I applied for 2, but they just didn't give me my second one, unfortunately. But yeah, first semester of junior year, you can only take 1 class, and every semester after that, you can take up to 2 classes.